Haha, tricked you, you probably thought this was gonna be a Luffy video, tricked you, haha. But hey, now that I'm finally talking about her, I can use the Vivi punching clip and it can actually mean something. It's not senseless violence when there's context behind it, after all. Vivi, get his ass! Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I know we've all been anticipating Mr. Monkey D, but I would simply not feel right making a video about him until I've covered every Straw Hat. All of them. And while that can cover a few more people in a very flexible sense, I promise this will be it. Because when it comes to the lovely lady we're talking about today, she's probably the most unofficial official Straw Hat we've got. She truly walked so the other unofficials could run, and with how the story is turning out, I feel I can finally talk about her. I already said her name, and I already showed her fierce determination. Ladies, gentlemen, and misfits alike, today's video is on one of my favorite characters in the entire series, and our first ever princess to start that One Piece princess trend. If we exclude Sanji, of course. Get excited and get loud, because today is all about Miss Nefertari Vivi. Fun fact about Vivi, even when she left the crew, she seemed to keep getting these cover arts with everyone else. And I don't mean she was just picked out at random with a bunch of other characters, I mean we'd get individual arts of all the Straw Hats doing fun things, followed by Vivi, just for this pattern to be rewashed and recycled. Didn't always happen of course, but I'm pretty sure she's gotten the most individual character arts for an unofficial Straw Hat. What does this mean? Who knows, maybe Oda just likes drawing her. But he was certainly playing dirty by including her in all these color spreads and individual arts just to not permanently add her. Considering how much Oda clearly enjoys leaving fake breadcrumb trails and yanking everyone's chain, the heartbreak this caused us was probably hilarious to him. What an evil man. These sins will not be forgotten. In my humble opinion, Vivi started the phenomenon I like to call Wheel of Straw Hats. A phenomenon in which every single reader of One Piece spins that damn wheel to guess who the hell will become the next Straw Hat. This wasn't just Vivi's influence, but Robin's as well. Because, even though it's obvious now, the switching of Vivi and Robin in terms of joining the crew was predictably unpredictable. And I say obvious now because no doubt some of you smarty pants are rushing to the comments saying, well no duh, Robin was gonna join. She was the only one who could read poneglyphs. And let me stop you there. We had no idea how damn important those rocks would be at the time. How were we supposed to know? But I'll still kiss your big, beautiful brain. So now with every arc and with every introduced character, it's become a musical chairs of who will be the next Straw Hat, or even the final Straw Hat. Vivi was the trigger in making us realize no matter the connection and no matter how long they spent with the crew, there's no guarantee a character will become a permanent crewmate. And so that damn wheel began to spin. I wasn't here for all of it, but I only found out recently a good chunk of people thought Caesar goddamn clown was going to join the Straw Hats. Vivi, what have you started here? A more recent example would be the back and forth between Carrot and Yamato, and then nothing happened. Like I said, Oda clearly likes to have a laugh. So while the fandom was in disarray, no doubt he was cackling it up, even though what he'd done with both Yamato and Carrot was literally the same thing he'd done with Vivi years before. I'm telling you, she's a bigger base of Oda's eternal red herrings than you think. Anyways, when it comes to Vivi, she has a heart about as big as the sun. For this video, I'll be going into the ins and outs of her character. Why did she hold the determination she did? Why is she the most badass princess? And how can she be so soft while being so tough at the same time? But before we do that, it's sponsor time. While we cannot all be pirates in our current day and age, we can still be pirates online, and we can do that safely with Atlas VPN. If you're not a tech nerd like me and have no idea what a VPN is, a VPN makes it so all your internet searches, browsing, and history is completely protected. It's sure to hide your IP address and keeps you safe from spying, especially from the pesky FBI agent in your computer who's watching you look up Zoro's big fat boobies as we speak. But Atlas VPN isn't just a VPN, it also protects you from pop pop-up ads, and malicious malware. It can also give you access to any country's version of Netflix or multiple other streaming services. I mentioned Netflix specifically because did you guys know multiple One Piece movies are on Australian Netflix? And with Atlas, you, yes, you, can take advantage of Atlas's huge discount. You can get a 3-year subscription from $1.70 a month with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Even better than that, if you use my link in the description below, you get an 86% discount for premium subscription. Snatch that deal while it's hot, and thank you so much Atlas VPN for sponsoring this video. I won't let you down. And now it's time we trudge through the sandy desert for our beautiful, powerful princess. Vivi was an extremely interesting character to me because, to start, she was the first princess we ever met. Why was this important and why did this interest me? Simple. Vivi laid out the law of the land in terms of how One Piece politics work. At first, she confused me entirely, considering I didn't know why a princess would need to run to outside sources, or take matters into her own hands against a government-assigned pirate. To refresh everyone's memory, her home and kingdom, Alabasta, was being slowly and maliciously overrun by Warlord of the Sea, Sir Crocodile. But of course, how could we neglect lovely Mr. Crocodile?
久しぶりだな。麦わら。
Who could forget a cunt like that? I was confused because why couldn't the king and princess of a country just kick this guy out? What jurisdiction does the world government have over these monarchs that a warlord pirate can just walk around freely, even though the royals are suspecting he's plotting to ruin the kingdom? Vivi's existence was not only a new character introduced into One Piece, but a showing of One Piece's political world and political power struggle. We see it especially in the final moments of Alabasta, as the Straw Hats cannot verbally announce they're Vivi's friends. Because apparently if they do, Vivi could be persecuted or possibly killed for even being associated with the Straw Hats in her own kingdom. We find these monarchs hold power over their islands and kingdoms, but it's to an extent. They cannot do much past being a political figure for their people. And the easiest choice a monarch could have is giving into the wills of the world government and throwing their citizens under the bus for an easier life. For a monarch in this world, their head is constantly on the chopping block. When they go to the Reverie, which is the world meeting of kingdoms within One Piece, they run the risk of saying something wrong and becoming target number one. While they indeed run these kingdoms, they do not fully control them, and do the best they can to have a functional society within the constraints of the world government. All of this to say, to do the right thing as a royal in this world, that's especially hard, because I know in the real world, monarchies don't exactly have the best reputation. You know, nepo babies and all. And that's not to say they don't exist in One Piece. Wapol is an example of that, but similar to the other kingdoms, he is still under constant threat of the world government. But if we look at the whole thing, Oda has had this fantastic idea where even the monarchs, the kings, the queens, and the princes and princesses of this world have got to submit to the celestial dragons. With Vivi existing as a princess, we know the most special treatment she's received is growing up in a palace. But Oda made sure to make careful steps with her story to show us indefinitely that Vivi is brave and fearless for working behind Crocodile's back. Because when it comes to the Warlords and when it comes to the world government, it seems they'd much rather lose a kingdom than truly lose a warlord. Why? Because warlords pose a much greater threat than any kingdom ever will. And to have a warlord under government control seems to hold more benefit than having a kingdom under control. After all, the warlords were only disbanded once 2 kingdoms claimed, with undeniable evidence, that these pirates attempted to run their kingdom and citizens into the ground. This only happened due to the world government being unable to turn a blind eye to the total corruption and chaos these warlords inflicted, even though this decision was made 2 years after Crocodile's deception. And one of the reasons the world government couldn't turn a blind eye, and the realization that the warlord system is one of complete deception and kleptocracy, meritocracy was thanks to Vivi. I'm saying all of this because this is important to understand and remember. Vivi's existence as a character started a movement within One Piece's world. The Warlord system was not only unstable to begin with, but a fair few of the pirates within it were either totally malicious from the start, or were pretty much blackmailed to be there. If they went against the world government's orders, they'd not only be removed of their warlord title, but imprisoned. Jinbei is a huge example of this. His refusal to participate in the Summit War forcing him in chains. Boa was there for the protection of Amazon Lily, otherwise her island would be swarmed with marines just to capture her. Mihawk could only live a peaceful life if he accepted the title of Warlord. And Kuma, well, let's not talk about him today. I don't want to start crying just yet. Point is, this system was truly good for no one. Sure, someone like Boa may have her island protected, but she is still faced with the threat of her title being stripped if she doesn't do as the government says. This is simply not a title of pride. This is a chain put around the necks of these pirates. And if they tug a little too much, that chain will be bolted to the ground. But what it did grant them, if they so chose, was the power of corruption under government jurisdiction, an abuse of authority that made the common person suffer, which we pretty much know the world government does not care about at this point. Yet, thanks to both Luffy and Vivi, this system was stopped completely. And to stop this abuse of the system, for Vivi to be able to break her kingdom free of warlord control and world government negligence, she had to become a rebel. Because if the powers that be would not help her kingdom, she'd damn well do it herself. Even if it meant becoming a bounty hunter, breaking world government law, and working with pirates for the good of her people. And this is a character we're looking at. Princess Nefertari Vivi of Alabasta Kingdom. Now, from what I know, Oda actually hadn't planned for Miss Wednesday to be a princess originally, and I don't know what god struck him with this lightning bolt idea, but it sure as hell worked out to be one of the best decisions he's ever made. Because the second her lineage gets revealed, and the second her true intentions are revealed to the Straw Hats, her characterization takes off at a flying pace. I know there's a few people out there who don't like Vivi, since there's an idea she's a Mary Sue of a character, or I guess even useless while being part of the Straw Hats. And while I know not everyone thinks this, I believe it a shame a lot of people do think it. Because Vivi, just like the Straw Hats, has her flaws. She has her problems as a person, and her time with the Straw Hats shows us every inch of her character. From the beginning, we find Vivi is an extremely stern character, not because she's uptight nor because she's irritable, but because she's been shouldering the lives of her kingdom on her shoulders since birth. Vivi is a person who, in her mind, cannot be selfish. She is not allowed to feel fear. She is not allowed to complain. And she is especially not allowed to live for herself. This is why when Vivi experiences Igaram's supposed death, all she can do is stand there, Vivi biting her lip so hard, it begins to bleed.
Vivi! Vivi! 急いで！私たちが見つかったら水の泡でしょ。大丈夫。ちゃんとあんたを送り届ける。
Luckily for her, Robin was never out to purposefully kill anyone, so we can put Igaram's survival on Robin's merciful heart. Something that struck me in this moment is Nami's immediate attachment to Vivi from this point on. Once watching the explosion and witnessing Vivi's stunned state, Nami cannot help but hug her in an attempt to comfort her. Nami is kind to women specifically, this is true, but there certainly is a huge change in demeanor when comparing Nami's interactions with Vivi literal seconds before. She goes from berating Vivi and using her as trade-off material for money to empathizing with her in this split moment. The reason for this is because Nami and Vivi have extremely similar lives and share a near identical pain. While Nami wasn't born a princess, at 10 years old, Nami decided to look after her village. To do such a thing, Nami had to wall herself off and became a stone-cold liar around other other people. Nami, more than anyone, understands giving your life away for those you care about. Nami understands what a lonely existence Vivi must have had, understands the extreme pain Vivi is going through, and especially understands why Vivi is trying desperately not to shed a single tear in this moment, because she had to do the exact same thing for years. When Nami holds Vivi and tells her it's alright, this is extremely personal. From this point on, while every arc we get may not be about Vivi, it surrounds Vivi. Little Garden showed Vivi does indeed have an adventurous spirit as she accompanies Luffy into the jungle, enjoying the sights and sounds with little to no fear. Worth noting that this was something not even Nami wanted to do, both her and Usopp fearing the jungle and all the beasts within it. Vivi is no coward, especially not to the unknown. And an interesting line she says before entering the jungle is, "I'll just brood if I sit around here." I'll get back to that. Once we get to Drum Island, while this was Chopper's arc, this arc was also about a fallen kingdom. We see Vivi's heart, mind, and being come out full throttle with nearly every single scene she's in. From Little Garden to Drum Island, these arcs show us Vivi and Luffy together make up two sides of the same coin. That may sound weird to begin with, but hear me out. Both of these characters cannot sit around. Both of these characters enjoy adventure. And both of these characters have a will of steel to meet their goals and dreams by any means necessary. The only thing is, due to being raised in different environments, they go about it in completely different ways. While Luffy is all about punching and running into situations head first, Vivi is all about reasoning, especially in situations where reasoning is an option. As the crew first sail into Drum Island, both Vivi and Luffy stand front and center as they're threatened to leave, and both are not being listened to. Vivi gets hit by a warning shot and Luffy sees red. Luffy's natural instinct at this point is to fight, but when Vivi jumps to stop him, she does the impossible. She settles Luffy due to her reasoning, and she does it by saying the coldest shit anyone said to Luffy up to this point.
仲間が重病で苦しんでいます。助けてください。お願いします。ビビ、あなたは船長失格よ、ルフィ。無茶をすれば全てが片付くとは限らない。
Luffy, you're a failure as a captain. Impulsiveness doesn't solve anything. Now here's the thing. Luffy is impulsive, but he's mainly impulsive in battle. In terms of listening to people, listening to plans, and listening to ideas, he does it. While he may sidetrack from a plan, he only does so when the situation calls for it. But Vivi taught him an extremely valuable lesson here, because when Luffy apologizes, he bows with Vivi, and Luffy acknowledges Vivi's patience and understanding when the people of Drum Island allow the Straw Hats onto the island. This is a lesson that stuck with Luffy arcs later, particularly on Amazon Lily. Luffy not only stops the fight with the Boa sisters because he doesn't want to fight them, but he bows to Boa in thanks for her help. An act of genuine sincerity. I know I've said plenty of times that Luffy is a people person, but the thing is, he's also someone who works on complete emotion. Through Vivi, Luffy has learnt not just to read people, but to understand people. And Vivi's understanding of a person, combined with Luffy's reading of a person, is why these two mend together so well. Honestly, this whole scene is so impressive to me, because not even a character like Law could stop Luffy's impulsiveness. Through Drum Island, we discover this aspect of Vivi comes from the fact she is a princess specifically. Vivi grew up in a political position where a single act of childishness, a second of impulsiveness, could have countries at war. When Dalton recollects his memory of Vivi as a child, he remembers how she bottled up the pain Wapol inflicted on her as to not cause a rift between kingdoms, and admires Vivi's strength and emotional intelligence from that point on. Vivi's total anger at Wapol abandoning his kingdom is another showing of just how deep her love for her kingdom runs, but also the raging disgust she feels at such negligence. This is all important, yet one of the most important scenes is Vivi rambling on about needing to help Nami, and Usopp tells her to calm down. When she's confused as to why, Usopp hits her with this line: "You worry too much." Just like in Little Garden, Vivi's incapability of sitting still follows her to Drum Island. And we realize something crucial to her character. Vivi is a worrywart, yes, but it's due to her feeling of needing to do something. Vivi is not someone who can just sit there and wait for results. She's not someone who can just watch things happen. Vivi needs to be active. She needs to take each problem in her own hands. Otherwise, her overthinking state leads her down a path of anxiety. This is exactly why she infiltrated Baroque Works at such a young age. Because someone was planning to ruin the kingdom she loves, and she refused to sit there and let these conspiring seeds root themselves into her home. Again, this is extremely similar to Luffy's own character, and there's a reason both of these characters are leaders in their own right. Vivi does not worry for the sake of whining. She worries because, for all her life, she was put in a position where thousands of lives were on her shoulders. If a single person dies, may this be citizens or friends, she believes it to be her fault. Not because she caused whatever happened, but because she believes she didn't do enough to prevent it. Nami understands this aspect of Vivi completely. And again, it's because Nami went through these same motions. This is why Nami hid the paper holding Alabasta's news, and why she understood if Vivi refused to stop for her sake when getting sick. Because Nami knows if Vivi sees a war about to break out in Alabasta, she will blame herself. Even though there's not a thing Vivi can do while away from Alabasta. Nami also helped calm Vivi when offering her a drink, asking Vivi if her worries just melt away on a ship like the Going Merry. And in an incredibly sweet moment, Vivi smiles while agreeing that it's very relaxing. God, don't you just love when girls support girls? A fantastic scene to mention in terms of Vivi and Luffy's combined stubbornness is the one where they literally butt heads in Alabasta. It's a scene I love so dearly, and I swear it's not because it's the scene where Vivi beats the shit out of Luffy. He's made out of rubber, guys, he's fine. This whole sequence does such a good job at showing Luffy in all his Luffy-ness, and Vivi in all her Vivi-ness. Luffy expresses he wants to kick Crocodile's butt, while also calling Vivi naive for hoping no one will die. Because, well, people die. A little bit ironic for Luffy to say, but I digress. Vivi asks Luffy what's so wrong about wishing no one will die, including the Straw Hats, and they get into this scuffle. And the reason this is happening, the reason these two got mad at each other, is because they're both trying to do what's best for the other. Vivi didn't want to fight Crocodile, especially not head on, and she doesn't want Luffy to fight Crocodile, because if he does, and if Luffy dies, Vivi will think that's on her. But in this moment, Luffy is directly saying he wants to fight Crocodile, as to take the burden off Vivi's shoulders. Not only that, Luffy yells that Vivi can't do everything herself, and this selflessness we've seen from Vivi this whole time is shoved directly in our face thanks to Luffy's words. And Vivi's response is exactly why Luffy got mad. Her answer being, "I have to. I don't care what it costs me." Luffy is not directly calling her childish for not wanting anyone to die. He's not stepping on her optimism for the lives of her kingdom. What he's doing is getting pissed off at Vivi willingly throwing her life away due to putting everything on herself. He's angry at the idea that she thinks she's allowed to die, but no one else can. In fact, this scene is a perfect mirror to Sanji's Whole Cake Island scene. Both Vivi and Sanji characters who carry the world on their backs, and both characters who needed Luffy to literally punch the truth out of them. Vivi was never going to admit she wants to fight Crocodile. She was never going to admit she needs help. And most importantly, she was never going to ask for it. Because Vivi could never forgive herself if lives were lost due to her idea of this being a selfishness. And when Luffy hits back, his words here made me tear up with Vivi.
他にかけられるものなんて私何も。俺たちの命くらい一緒にかけてみろ。仲間だろうが。
Let us help. If there's something Luffy can't stand, it's his friends not trusting him. He can't stand when his friends won't rely on him. And he especially cannot stand the sacrifice of life if the friend in question thinks that's their only option. Luffy looked right through Vivi at this moment, and she started crying because Luffy lifted a weight off her heart. This is also the first scene where we actually see Vivi shed any tears, a grief she'd been holding back and trying to hide all this time. And we need to remember, since she was a child, she had this idea she must do everything herself. She believed she couldn't rely on anyone, not because she's pretentious, but because she doesn't want sacrifice in her name. But when you have friends who want to help you, who are literally screaming in your face they're doing this because they want to, how can Vivi not break down at the realization she has people she can lean on? It was a lesson Vivi needed to learn, and even though it took a punch, she became stronger from it. When Luffy first goes up against Crocodile and the entire crew is on edge from leaving Luffy behind, Vivi does her absolute best to keep her faith in Luffy. She, more than anyone, wanted to turn back and stop Luffy, but she's going against her anxiety to put her faith in him. And when we get to the final scenes of Alabasta, these lessons allow Vivi to apply herself to the best of her abilities. As Luffy is off fighting Crocodile, she doesn't have to worry about 10 different things at the same time, because with the Straw Hats on the battlefield, she is allowed to just worry about the Civil War. She is allowed to only focus on her citizens and put all her power into saving them. And that she does. While it was eventually rain that stopped the war, courtesy of Smoker, who, thanks to both Luffy and Vivi, willingly helped the Straw Hats, we see Vivi and Luffy executing what they're best at. Luffy beating the shit out of Crocodile, and Vivi screaming at her people to stop fighting. Her will is so powerful here. Her desperation for her country and people to finally be at peace, something you can feel in your bones. I will never forget the goosebumps I got when the rain started to fall, and Vivi crying while saying the nightmare is finally over. It was just phenomenal. Even with her country at peace, Vivi is still someone who cannot exist for herself. She believes her life and duty is for Alabasta and Alabasta alone. She stopped a war from fully breaking out, and she will continue to look over her kingdom so long as she can exist without burdening others. It came as no surprise to me when she rejected the Straw Hats' offer to adventure with them, because Vivi is an incredibly selfless person. As much as she wanted to be with the crew, and as much as she loved them, she continued to sacrifice herself for her home. It was tough for her, for all of them to have to part. Vivi must put her duty before herself. But in her only selfish request, she asks if the Straw Hats will call her their crewmate if they meet again. And that's when we get the iconic scene. Vivi is eternally bound to the Straw Hats, with a promise to meet again at sea. And we can see from her current day self, she still believes Luffy her captain, and she still has the heart of a pirate. When discovering Robin is a Straw Hat, Vivi just laughs and expresses that she trusts Luffy, so she's not worried about it. Once again, showing the lesson she learnt when previously traveling with them. This is followed by Vivi saying Luffy will become the king of pirates, her faith in him as unwavering as the rest of the crew. When we hit the time skip during the reverie scenes, Vivi jumps onto the ship like it's home, her pirate heart and love for adventure being something that's only grown over the years. And now, with the discovery of her lineage, we know a pure justice and rebellion of abusive authority is something that quite literally flows through her veins. Vivi, in my opinion, is a beacon of absolute hope and power. Just like she stopped the Warlords system, by all means, she has the power to make the world shake, especially considering we know the extent she'll go to for the country she protects, for the people she loves, never stopping so long as she finds true peace for everyone. Once again, a direct mirror of Luffy's own wants and wills, just in two different ways. It's no wonder she's currently being hunted down by the most powerful person in the world. Her existence and her will alone is a threat to those in power. The insanity of Vivi's importance aside, her story was a tough one to handle, because more than just Vivi, this was about Alabasta, a place that's not only her home, but home to thousands of others. And the reason her fight was painful is because she was being forced to watch a land she loves slowly turn to ruin. Alabasta does a fantastic job at touching on the pain of home and country, of having Vivi understand the issues with her homeland while refusing to let it go. Crocodile purposefully preyed on a broken country, wanting to take control, and we watch him actively attempt to burn it down for his own gain. When asked why Vivi wants to save a country such as Alabasta, she yells that it's her home. And from her knowledge of the smaller cities to the navigation of the desert, it's clear Vivi has a deep love for this land like no other. Vivi refuses to be pushed out of her home, and she doesn't want to see it destroyed, which is why seeing the people fight between themselves is a personal hell she faces. The princess of this country has spent years gathering intel from Baroque works to understand their plans, to discover they're purposefully spreading misinformation and devastating the kingdom, and she can't do anything to stop it. She doesn't want any deaths, and she puts herself on the front lines because these deaths truly are meaningless. She's the only one that knows the people of Alabasta are fighting over nothing, that the rebel army exists in vain. And it's even worse to know both the Royal Guard and the rebels are doing this due to their love for the country. It's completely evil to encourage bloodshed for personal benefit, and Vivi's forced to watch a meaningless war due to a pirate with the government's power behind him. This is why Vivi had such a selfless nature, why she traded her life for others if it meant they could be spared. And the scene of her begging the fighting to stop is gut-wrenching in its execution. From the get-go, Alabasta is an extremely solid arc in showing us the cruelty of One Piece's world, with Vivi facing horrible trials in her desperation to save the country she loves so much. We didn't need to see the deaths nor the actual bloodshed, because everything was laid out before us with Vivi's fear and despair. And it's also why, as we follow Vivi's journey, we are shown just how strong she is. In Drum Island, Wapol was a man who abandoned his kingdom when times got tough, and by all means, Vivi could have done the same. But her compassion and her sacrifice made it so she refused to be kicked from her home, and she refused to watch her citizens struggle until they were buried in the ground. Alabasta is a land like no other, one Vivi grew up in and knew everything about. But most importantly, she understood the people and their hearts. Everyone we see in this this arc loves their home. Every single citizen loves Alabasta, and Vivi is the one carrying their hopes on her back. Vivi's love for her country has nothing to do with her being anything like a nationalist. It has nothing to do with politics or the monarchy. It's because this is her home. And if it means fighting for it, she will never give up until the fight is won. Vivi, in my opinion, is an exceptionally strong character. Her heart is made of steel. Her will is immovable. And while she's currently not with the crew, she still embodies the spirit and soul of a Straw Hat. I can only hope and pray that she sees them again to finally, proudly stand with the King of Pirates. Dear Princess Vivi, I love you so much. And with that, thanks for watching. I hope everyone liked this. I swear I will be making a Luffy video soon. I just needed to get the final Straw Hat out of the way. She may not be on the boat, but she's a crewmate to me, okay? Oda, please, I miss her so much. Let me know what you think about Vivi. She seems to get a bit of a mixed response from audiences, so I truly hope this has helped in showing why she shines so much in my eyes. As I always say, it's not just about physical strength. And Vivi's being is so powerful to me that I did my best for everyone to get shaken by her too. Just a quick reminder that I do have a Patreon, and if you would like to support me there, I'd really appreciate it. However, I know not everyone can support me in that way, and just watching and sharing these videos does more than you can imagine for me. If there's anything you'd like to see me cover, One Piece or otherwise, please let me know. And I'll see you in whatever I make next. See ya!